Diddy, you know Diddy?
Diddy,
one of my best friends.
Okay.
Right? Okay. When you want to be a Kappa, you want to be Kappa, you want to be Alpha, whatever the it is, okay? We're gonna haze you and haze you and haze you until you are a Kappa. That's what happened. People sold their souls to Diddy. And then they're mad now because the hazing process was a little bit rougher than they thought.
Los Angeles just turned up the heat. Orlando Brown, the former TV star known for his roller coaster antics on social media, has officially accepted a federal subpoena to testify against Sean Diddy Combs in a high-stakes criminal case. Freshly released court documents confirm that Brown is now a central witness for the prosecution, armed with explosive secret voice recordings from not one, but 3 separate weekends spent at Diddy-associated properties.
Nigga, you can't de-king a king. Why do you think I love Diddy so much? You're not gonna dethrone this man because he know how to get you there. By way of hazing you, I call it haze. And we're gonna still do this. We're gonna still do this. It's not gonna stop. Take that. It's still gonna happen. The bitch got 3 million and we're still waking up in the morning, drinking cognac, screaming, bad boy, bad boy.
According to Brown's legal team, the voice memos were captured using a second phone he kept in airplane mode, only powering it on briefly to document his observations. He reportedly recorded everything, from who entered the guest wing to staff activity late at night, even tracking subtle hallway movements. Federal agents claim the audio files are loaded with metadata that aligns perfectly with router logs already in their possession. And here's the kicker. A now partially unsealed affidavit reveals that Brown's phone identifier appears in restricted areas at the exact times he said he was there. Prosecutors argue this directly supports other pieces of digital evidence, including spreadsheets from former head of security Roger Bonds and smart lighting logs showing manual light shutoffs in the dead of night.
Diddy's trying to kill me. You know, Diddy and Jay-Z, Auntie Sean and Auntie Yolanda. No matter how many contracts you try to take out on my life, no matter how many times you try to threaten my family or threaten people to stay away from me, no matter how many things you try to do to me and how many things you've tried to do to me, it ain't working. Don't play with somebody that you know got the drop.
I literally took one sip of my beverage and the whole side of my face felt like I had a
Brown's memos even picked up security radio chatter using the phrase, heartbeat reset, reportedly a code signaling that doors were being cycled and cameras momentarily dimmed. The defense isn't convinced, brushing off the term as harmless and accusing Brown of trying to curry favor in an unrelated firearm case out of Nevada. Still, under his current cooperation agreement, Brown could see leniency in that case, but only if he fully complies. He's not just making noise. He's legally bound to deliver the truth, the whole truth, or face serious consequences.
Got on a plane at 5:30 a.m. So this party, I think half the people there were butt naked.
Well, it's not up to me. It's up to Mr. Combs, and I don't see it happening.
Why?
Because he believes he's innocent. He believes he's innocent, and what's more, he believes that he needs to stand up, not just for himself, for his family, and for everybody who's been targeted by the federal government.
Brown's cooperation agreement spells it out. If he lies or even stretches the truth, any hope of leniency in his Nevada firearm case vanishes. Prosecutors argue that clause is proof he's got every reason to stick to the facts. But the defense sees it differently, claiming it shows he's just trying to save himself. Judge Aaron Suberman-Manian isn't letting things drag. He's scheduled a brief hearing to review the chain of custody on Brown's recordings and has confirmed that Brown will take the stand in the second week of the prosecution's case. Inside the courtroom, it's shaping up to be a dramatic face-off between two completely different narratives. The prosecution is coming in with a polished presentation. Brown's voice memos will be played in chronological order, each one synced to digital evidence like door sensor logs and smart lighting shifts that align in real time with his commentary. A digital forensics expert will follow, testifying that the audio files are untouched. No edits, no cuts, no manipulation. But the defense is ready to counter. They're calling in a hospitality consultant to testify that it's common practice in luxury estates to disable hallway cameras to protect guest privacy, not to conceal wrongdoing. And those linen service receipts? The defense says they're nothing more than routine expenses for upscale gatherings.
Well, Bill and Sade, accepting a plea agreement would mean that Sean Combs would have to admit to trafficking and force. And today he made it very clear that was not going to happen. Diddy maintained all along these encounters involved consenting adults and plans to take his chances that a jury agrees.
Isn't that, to my mind, that's one of the bigger hurdles in selecting a jury this coming week, is that there is, at least anecdotally, when I talk to people, they have that opinion, strongly held opinion, that there's celebrity tapes, that they've kind of conflated Epstein, and you mentioned Ghislaine Maxwell and all of these things into Diddy. There's this idea that somehow this is Epstein redux or something.
But the defense isn't backing down without a fight. They're pushing hard to keep Orlando Brown's turbulent past from overshadowing what they insist is a case of simple estate logistics being twisted into a criminal conspiracy. They argue the prosecution is turning routine mansion operations into something far more sinister than they actually are. With the clock ticking, both sides are moving fast to stay on schedule. Prosecutors say their case will wrap shortly after Brown testifies. The defense hasn't confirmed yet whether Sean Diddy Combs will take the stand himself. Closing arguments are already penciled in for early next month, leaving the jury to weigh a massive pile of evidence, from router logs and lighting patterns to Brown's potentially damning voice memos. As soon as Brown's corridor recordings were introduced in court, the trial took a sharp technical turn. It began with the testimony of Special Agent Lynn Rivas, the digital forensics lead who oversaw the imaging of Brown's secret phone. She walked the jury through each step, cloning the phone's internal storage, generating a unique hash value, a digital fingerprint to prove the data's integrity, and creating a secure copy for analysis. That hash value? It never changed, not once, across every phase of the process, something the defense had no choice but to acknowledge. But they didn't let it slide quietly. The defense tried to raise doubt, pressing Rivas on whether the device could have contained preloaded or auto-edited files. She stood firm. Her team had run deep waveform analysis, detecting no splices, no cuts, no edits. And the audio file's timestamps? They aligned exactly with the phone's system logs. With the data now authenticated, prosecutors played the first voice memo in court, timestamped at 1 a.m. during Brown's earliest recorded visit. The trial, already a media frenzy, just entered its most critical phase.
What made you come here to support Puff?
I'm supporting Puff because he's innocent, and I'm wholeheartedly believing his innocence, and I know he's innocent. So,
Well, you say you know he's innocent.
1,000%.
Mr. Combs feels A, he's innocent, which is why he's not going to plead guilty. B, he's going to be truthful about this case because he wants to portray that to the people who have loved him his whole life. And I think he also feels an obligation to people in general. Maybe it's black people, maybe it's white people, maybe it's anybody who's ever felt aggrieved and targeted by the government. He feels an obligation to those people to say, you know what, maybe I can break the model. Maybe I can show the world that a black man can win, in federal court. And I think he probably is the only person I know of who might be able to actually accomplish that.
And when the judge did, Diddy, who was sitting at the defense table with his attorneys, did not show any signs of emotion. He took a sip of water before he was led out of the courtroom by the U.S. Marshals. Now, his lawyers have vowed to fight this. They are going to be back in court on Wednesday before the judge who will oversee this trial and try to get Diddy to be.
The courtroom fell into a heavy silence as the first clip played. Orlando Brown's voice, low and steady, came through the speakers. North Wing, second corridor. Then, faintly in the background, radio chatter, and then it hit. Heartbeat reset. Boom. Prosecutors froze the audio right at that moment, letting the phrase hang in the air. Then, with precise timing, they threw up a digital router log onto the courtroom monitor. The log showed Brown's phone briefly connecting to a network, node labeled guest APN2, just long enough to send a file header, then instantly going dark again. That short connection, prosecutors argued, was no coincidence. It matched the exact moment Brown recorded the heartbeat reset comment and aligned perfectly with internal access logs already in government hands. The implication? He wasn't just in the building, he was in the right place, at the right time, capturing something the feds say wasn't supposed to be heard.
As far as jury selection goes, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that both sides expect to have all of this done in the matter of 3 days. Now, given just how high profile this trial is, I was kind of stunned that they seem very confident that they will be able to seat a jury in that amount of time.
What happens is if people go into a trial believing the firepower on the prosecution is so strong, I mean, let's say on a scale of 1 to 100, it's a 95 that it's so strong, but it goes down to an 88. That helps the defense because everybody goes in thinking, wow, they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and all of a sudden, none of it's there. I think that actually helps the defense.
Defense attorney Matthew Hartley tried to dismiss the phone activity as a harmless system sync, claiming it likely woke up to check the time. But Special Agent Lynn Rivas didn't miss a beat. She shot back with clarity. The phone had no SIM card and 0 saved Wi-Fi networks. It couldn't have synced anything automatically. Someone, she said, manually powered it on. And whoever did that, did it with intention. Then came another blow. The prosecution introduced a procurement ledger already authenticated by Olivia Martinez, the state supply coordinator. On it, a suspicious late-night order labeled Guest Refresh, with a rush code and a handwritten note that read, Use Heartbeat Cart. Martinez, firm on the stand, explained to the jury that this referred to a color-coded laundry cart reserved only for urgent, high-priority requests in the guest wing. When the defense tried to rattle her memory by pointing out the order happened, years ago, Martinez didn't budge. Only high-priority requests ever included that cart, she said flatly. Then prosecutors brought up Tyler Blake, a building automation engineer who worked on the estate's lighting systems. He confirmed that 4 manual overrides were logged that very weekend, all in the guest wing. Each override dimmed lights for exactly 6 minutes. The government laid out a compelling graph. Those lighting dips overlapped perfectly with Brown's recorded memos. Hartley tried to muddy the waters, suggesting a photographer or stylist might have triggered the changes for ambiance. Blake conceded it was technically possible, but then came the twist. Normally, any manual lighting override is accompanied by a note explaining the change. For these 4 entries, no notes at all. Finally, the courtroom focused in on the man at the center of it all, Orlando Brown. Prosecutor Celia Grant stepped forward and played one of the now infamous memos. "Is that your voice on the recording?" she asked. Brown didn't hesitate. "Yes, that's me."
Last hearing before Sean Combs' trial starts, when he walked into federal court today, he appeared to be looking for his family. They've pretty much been at all of the hearings that I've been to, but there was no presence of his sons or his mother or his sister who had previously been at those hearings.
Do you still think that, because there is this public perception, that there are celebrity tapes involved in this case?
No.
Do you still think that there are minors involved in this case?
I'm certain no.
Okay.
And again, when you say this case, we're talking the criminal case.
The criminal case.
In the
correct.
criminal,
I know that.
In the criminal case,
Right.
no.
Brown stayed composed as Hartley pressed him. The defense attorney read out excerpts from past interviews. One clip had Brown saying the party ended around 3 a.m. Another had him claiming it went till dawn. In one, he mentioned a small gathering, while in another, he referred to it as wall-to-wall chaos. Hartley turned to the jury and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, this man can't even keep his own timeline straight." But Brown didn't back down. He looked directly at the jury and replied, "Yeah, I said some different things back then. I was scared, trying to forget it all. But now I'm under oath. I'm not guessing anymore. I've got the tapes. That line hit hard." Prosecutors followed up by reminding the court that Brown's recordings were time-stamped, verified, and matched down to the second, with router logs, lighting controls, and building access data. The defense may have exposed inconsistency, in Brown's past statements, but the hard data behind his testimony was painting a very different picture, one the jury couldn't ignore.
Back up a little bit, please.
How can you support your father? How do you support him moving forward?
Y'all know what this is about. Put your hands up.
At trial, Combs will ditch the jail garb and wear ordinary clothes, as his lawyers argue the evidence shows consenting adults being intimate in their own way.
We have the latest from federal court in the Sean Combs criminal case. Status of jury selection, what Diddy's going to be wearing, violation of a gag order, rejecting a plea.
As the room settled after the recess, the tension skyrocketed. The second voice memo blared through the speakers, time-stamped precisely at 3:03 a.m. Brown's voice, steady but urgent, cut through the silence. North Wing, Hallway 3, staff. Moving, lights flickering. That's what they're hiding. Prosecutors froze the audio, then flashed the building's manual override logs on the screen. The lights, it turned out, had been dimmed exactly at 3:03 a.m., matching the voice. Memo perfectly. The room was buzzing. The synchronicity between the audio and the lighting data was undeniable. Hartley tried to undermine the impact, claiming it was a coincidence or that the lights could have been dimmed for any number of reasons, but it was. Clear the defense was grasping at straws. Brown's earlier response echoed back, loud and clear. I'm not here to lie or make deals. I'm here to tell the truth.
Had argued that he had made good faith efforts by showing up in New York, ready to surrender to face these charges, but prosecutors said that he could not be trusted, that he has a history of trying to intimidate witnesses, including some who are going to be witnesses in this case. They urged the judge to remand him.
He knows the deck is stacked against him. They've got a ton of evidence. Take the plea deal, dude. Just take it.
Well, my guess is that, because we don't know the deal of the plea deal. At least I don't think we do.
And guarantees Combs will face trial beginning just 4 days from now that will test whether one of music's most prolific figures used his power, wealth, and fame to exploit both women and men for decades.
Elaborate, sometimes days-long parties by coercing victims through drugs, threats, and manipulation. They claim to have video evidence, and some of the accusations echo details from over 70 civil lawsuits filed against Combs over the last 30 years.
Major developments tonight involving the case against Sean Diddy Combs, what he decided in court today, and what this now means, the move coming just 4 days before his trial is set to begin. Here's Aaron Katursky.
The trial took a dramatic turn as Orlando Brown's voice memos continued to unravel the mystery surrounding Sean Diddy Combs. In his most chilling recording yet, Brown described the corridor lights shifting to a dim red pulse, calling it a running heartbeat as staff escorted small groups through mirror-paneled doors. Prosecutors seized this moment, revealing a bombshell, an image from a motion-triggered camera in a maintenance hallway. The snapshot, showing a housekeeper pushing a cart labeled "Refresh," was time-stamped less than a minute after the radio chatter in Brown's memo. The defense tried to downplay it, claiming the image was old news, but Judge Subramanian wasn't having it. He allowed the image to stay, citing that multiple sources of evidence helped connect the dots. To strengthen the authenticity of the recordings, prosecutors brought in Dr. Maya Chen, an expert in signal analysis. She confirmed that the background, sounds in Brown's memos, like ventilation hums and faint music, were consistent across all three recordings, indicating they were all made in the same wing of the estate. When the defense pushed back, Chen stood firm, explaining that the combination of ambient sounds matched the estate's specific layout, confirmed in blueprints. Then came a bombshell voicemail, left on Brown's second phone, where a staff coordinator, identified as working under Combs, confirmed, "We'll have the heartbeat upgraded and ready." This was another reference to the heartbeat, which, as the jury learned earlier, was code for lighting and surveillance adjustments. Despite the defense's objections, Judge Subramanian overruled, pointing out that earlier testimony had solidified the meaning of heartbeat. In a significant development, Sean Diddy Combs rejected a plea deal that could have spared him a lengthy sentence. When asked if he had turned down the offer, he stood in a beige jail uniform and said, "Yes, I do, Your Honor." The prosecution had offered a plea that could have resulted in a shorter sentence, but Combs chose to face the charges. he remains in federal custody, with no bail granted. The judge expressed concern over the nature of the crime, which she said happened behind closed doors. In the courtroom, the prosecution didn't back down. During cross-examination, the defense tried to use a housekeeping guide that described the heartbeat glow as a luxury feature, but prosecutors weren't swayed. They clarified that the guide referred to constant lighting setups, not the manual overrides caught in the system logs. Before court adjourned for the day, the prosecution revealed one final ace up their sleeve, a records analyst who would tie suspicious payroll activity to the weekend covered in Brown's voice memos. On the other hand, the defense was preparing to call in a hospitality expert and an automation systems executive to argue that the lighting overrides and linen orders were just part of the normal VIP treatment, with no sinister intent. Judge Subramanian kept the pressure on both sides, instructing them to keep their closing arguments focused and to avoid unnecessary technical jargon. With the trial racing toward its conclusion, the battle has never been clearer. The prosecution insists that the evidence, from Brown's memos to network logs and supply records, fits together too perfectly to be coincidental. Meanwhile, the defense claims it's just the natural chaos of managing a luxury estate. As the trial enters its final stage, the fate of Sean Diddy Combs hangs in the balance. The jury now has the power to decide which side's version of events holds up in court. With tensions running high, it's clear this will be one of Hollywood's most monumental trials. The next few weeks will be crucial, and the twists keep coming. If you're following this case, hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment below to stay updated. Trust me, this trial is only getting deeper, and you don't want to miss what happens next.